The Bloodline just got nuclear-level reinforcements, and what Zilla Fatu and Jacob Fatu did at Survivor Series 2025 has absolutely decimated the entire WWE power structure, created the most dominant faction in wrestling history, and proven that Roman Reigns' empire isn't ending, it's just entering its most dangerous phase yet. If you think you understand what this return means for WWE's future, if you believe this is just adding 2 more members to an existing group, you're about to discover that Zilla and Jacob's arrival represents a complete takeover of WWE that nobody can stop, nobody can challenge, and nobody saw coming in the way it actually happened. And if you click away before I reveal the exact moment during Survivor Series when these two emerged and who they attacked to make their statement, an attack so brutal it required medical personnel to stretcher 3 top stars out of the building, you'll miss the detail that proves the Bloodline's reign of terror is just beginning. The Samoan Dynasty just became unstoppable, and WWE's entire roster should be absolutely terrified of what's coming. Let me paint you the picture of the most shocking and brutal 15 minutes in Survivor Series history, because what transpired wasn't just a return, it was a hostile takeover executed with surgical precision that left the WWE Universe in stunned silence and the wrestling world scrambling to understand the implications of the Bloodline becoming this powerful, this deep, and this impossible to defeat. Survivor Series 2025 was in the middle of the main event WarGames match, absolute chaos inside the double cage structure with WWE's top stars destroying each other in the most brutal environment in wrestling. The match had been going for 30 minutes, bodies were broken, everyone was exhausted, and it looked like we were heading toward the climax with both teams giving everything they had left. The crowd was on fire, this was already being called an instant classic, and then everything changed in a way that nobody predicted. The lights went out. Complete darkness inside the arena. And when they came back up, standing on the entrance ramp were 2 massive figures that made the entire building erupt in a mixture of shock, excitement, and genuine fear. Zilla Fatu, the rising star who many considered the future of the Bloodline, and Jacob Fatu, the Samoan werewolf who's been absolutely destroying opponents everywhere he wrestles, were standing side by side, wearing Bloodline colors, with expressions that told everyone watching that they weren't here to play nice or slowly integrate into WWE. They were here to dominate. But here's where this gets absolutely insane and where WWE's booking becomes pure genius or complete chaos depending on your perspective. Zilla and Jacob didn't just walk down the ramp and enter the WarGames cage like you'd expect. Instead, they went around the structure and started attacking the wrestlers who were outside the cage, referees, medical staff, and specifically the wrestlers who were designated as the final entrants for both teams who were waiting their turn to enter the match. The assault was systematic and absolutely brutal. Jacob Fatu grabbed the first opponent, a main event level babyface who the crowd loves, and delivered a hip attack so devastating against the cage structure that it dented the steel. Zilla Fatu, showing why he's considered one of the most athletic big men in wrestling, launched himself at another top star with a tope suicido that sent both men crashing through the barricade. This wasn't wrestling, this was a demolition executed by 2 men with bad intentions and no regard for anyone's safety. The wrestlers inside the WarGames cage were helpless to stop what was happening. They could see the carnage through the cage walls but couldn't get out to help their teammates because of WarGames rules. The frustration, the desperation, the horror on their faces as they watched Zilla and Jacob systematically destroy everyone outside created incredible drama and sold the danger these two represent. WWE's cameras captured every anguished expression, every moment of helpless rage from the wrestlers trapped inside watching their friends get demolished. Then came the moment that will be replayed for years as one of the most iconic visuals in Survivor Series history. Roman Reigns' music hit. The tribal chief walked out onto the stage, surveyed the destruction his family members were causing, and gave a single nod of approval. That nod, that simple gesture, confirmed what everyone suspected: this wasn't a rogue attack or unexpected interference. This was planned. This was orchestrated by Roman himself. This was the tribal chief expanding his empire with the 2 most dangerous enforcers in the Anoa'i family. The WarGames match itself became irrelevant once Zilla and Jacob's rampage began. How could anyone care about what was happening inside the cage when the entire foundation of WWE's power structure was being demolished outside it? WWE made the brilliant decision to essentially abandon the match in progress and focus cameras on the carnage, on Roman's orchestration, on the sheer dominance being displayed. The match became a backdrop for a storyline development that's going to define WWE for the next year. Security flooded the ringside area trying to restore order, and you know what happened? Zilla and Jacob went through security like they were children. These Rene cops who were supposed to maintain order got absolutely destroyed by 2 Samoan warriors who had no interest in being controlled. Multiple security personnel were left laid out, some selling injuries, all contributing to the visual of complete chaos that WWE created. This was invasion-level disorder, and it was perfect for establishing just how dangerous these 2 are. The medical response to the attack is what really sold the severity of what happened. 3 top WWE stars, all main event level talent, had to be stretchered out of the building. Not helped to the back, not walking with assistance, stretchered. WWE went all in on making this attack look devastating and career-threatening. Ambulances were shown pulling up to the arena. Doctors were shown frantically working on the victims. This wasn't treated like a typical wrestling beatdown, this was treated like a legitimate assault that had real consequences. Roman Reigns addressing the situation in the ring after the chaos is what elevated this from shocking moment to legendary segment. Roman grabbed a microphone, stood in the center of the WarGames structure with bodies laid out all around him, and delivered what might be the best promo of his tribal chief run. "You thought the bloodline was done? You thought my family's reign was ending? I just added the two most dangerous men in this business to my family. Zilla Fatu and Jacob Fatu aren't just wrestlers, they're destroyers. And starting right now, every single person in WWE is on notice. You acknowledge me, or they destroy you." The chills that promo gave everyone watching. The authority, the menace, the absolute confidence that Roman has the power to back up every word he says. This wasn't a desperate faction trying to stay relevant, this was the most dominant force in wrestling announcing that they just got stronger and there's nothing anyone can do about it. The promo made it clear that Zilla and Jacob aren't joining as equals, they're joining as Roman's weapons, extensions of his will, enforcers of his dominance. The social media explosion that followed has been absolutely unprecedented. Within minutes, #Bloodline expansion and #Zilla and Jacob were trending #1 worldwide. Wrestling fans across every platform were simultaneously excited, terrified, and speculating about what this means for WWE's future. The discourse has been intense with passionate arguments about whether WWE is making the bloodline too dominant, whether Zilla and Jacob were ready for the spotlight, and whether anyone can possibly stop this faction now. But let's talk about the controversial aspect that has some fans absolutely furious, the timing of when WWE pulled this trigger. Zilla Fatu had been developing his character on the independent scene, building his reputation, showing that he's more than just another member of the Anoa'i family. Some fans wanted to see more of that developmental journey before he was brought into WWE as part of the bloodline. The argument is that WWE robbed both Zilla and the fans of seeing him prove himself independently before being absorbed into Roman's storyline. Jacob Fatu's situation is even more controversial because he's been an absolute monster in MLW and independent promotions for years. Jacob has proven himself as one of the most athletic and dangerous big men in all of wrestling, someone who could have come to WWE as a solo act and immediately been positioned as a main event threat. Instead, WWE brought him in as part of the bloodline, which some fans view as limiting his character to being Roman's muscle rather than letting Jacob showcase his full range as a performer. The counterargument, and this is what WWE's booking logic seems to be, is that bringing Zilla and Jacob in as a package attached to the bloodline storyline immediately positions them at the highest level of WWE programming. They skip NXT, they skip the slow developmental build, they're immediately on main roster television as part of the biggest faction in the company. From a business and exposure perspective, it's genius. From a character development perspective, it's potentially limiting. Both perspectives have merit. The backstage reaction within WWE has been mixed according to multiple sources. Veterans who respect the Anoa'i family legacy and understand how dynasties work in wrestling are supportive, viewing this as the natural evolution of the bloodline story and a way to keep it fresh and compelling. But there's another faction, younger wrestlers who aren't connected to wrestling royalty, who view this as more evidence that WWE prioritizes family connections over merit and that opportunities are going to people because of their last name rather than their abilities. The bloodline members who were already in the group have interesting reactions that WWE needs to navigate carefully. The Usos have been Roman's brothers throughout this entire bloodline saga. How do they feel about new family members coming in and potentially taking their spotlight? Solo Sikoa has been the enforcer. Does Jacob's arrival threaten his position? These internal family dynamics create storyline gold but also potential booking problems if not handled properly. Paul Heyman's role in all of this is fascinating and hasn't been fully explained yet. Did Heyman know about Zilla and Jacob's arrival? Was this Roman making a move without consulting his wise man? How does Heyman integrate these new members into the bloodline's power structure? Heyman's gift for political maneuvering and managing egos is going to be tested like never before with a faction this large and this loaded with main event talent. The pure wrestling implications of having Zilla and Jacob in WWE are what has hardcore fans most excited. The matches these two can have are absolutely endless. Jacob Fatu vs. Gunther? Money. Zilla Fatu vs. Braun Breaker in a battle of young athletic monsters? Incredible. The permutations of dream matches just multiplied exponentially with their arrivals. WWE has years of fresh matchups to explore with these two in the mix. The tag team division just got absolutely nuclear with the addition of Zilla and Jacob. Whether they team together or pair with other bloodline members, you're looking at potentially the most dominant tag team force in WWE. Their combination of size, power, and athleticism is virtually unmatched. The Usos are already legendary tag team champions. Adding Zilla and Jacob creates multiple elite tag team combinations within one faction. That's depth that no other faction in WWE can match. The faction warfare implications are what's going to define WWE storylines for the foreseeable future. How does anyone assemble a team capable of standing against the Bloodline now? You're looking at Roman Reigns, the Usos, Solo Sikoa, Zilla Fatu, and Jacob Fatu. That's 5 main event level talents who can all go in the ring and are united under one banner. The only way to create competitive opposition is to do something drastic like forming a superfaction of WWE's biggest names just to have a chance. The merchandise potential is massive with Zilla and Jacob now in WWE. New Bloodline designs incorporating all members. Individual merch for both newcomers. Special edition Survivor Series attack commemorative items. WWE's merchandise department is going to make millions off the excitement around this expansion. The retail partners are probably already scrambling to increase inventory orders because they know demand is going to be huge. The international markets are going absolutely insane over this development, particularly territories where the Bloodline is already incredibly popular. Polynesian markets obviously have deep connections to the Anoa'i family, but even in Europe, Asia, and Latin America, the Bloodline's dominance translates across cultural boundaries. Zilla and Jacob's arrival creates new touring opportunities, international media attention, and growth potential for WWE's global expansion. The NXT implications are interesting because Zilla and Jacob essentially skipped developmental entirely. They went straight to main roster programming at the highest level. That's going to create questions and possibly resentment from NXT talent who are grinding through the developmental system wondering why they have to pay their dues while family connections get you immediately elevated. WWE's development philosophy is being tested by this decision. The ratings and viewership projections for Raw and SmackDown following Survivor Series are through the roof. Casual fans who don't normally watch weekly television are going to tune in to see what happens next with the Bloodline. Lapsed fans who've heard about this shocking return are going to check out WWE again. The business impact of this angle is going to be measurable in concrete numbers, which justifies WWE's decision to go all in on the Bloodline expansion. The championship implications are what has fans most excited and most concerned. With this many main event talents in one faction, are we looking at the Bloodline holding multiple championships simultaneously? Roman with the world title, Usos with tag titles, Solo with midcard title, potentially Zilla and Jacob challenging for championships too? WWE could position the Bloodline as holding every meaningful title on their brand, which would be incredibly dominant but potentially stale if maintained too long. The eventual breakup of the Bloodline is what everyone is already speculating about because a faction this large and this stacked with egos cannot stay together forever. When the implosion happens, and it will happen, the resulting feuds are going to be incredible. Brother versus brother, cousin versus cousin, the family warfare that will erupt when this faction finally fractures will provide WWE with years of compelling storylines. The question isn't if it breaks up, but when and how. The women's division is watching this storyline with interest because there's speculation that WWE might bring in female members of the Anoa'i family to complete the Bloodline's representation across divisions. Imagine a scenario where the Bloodline has representation in men's main event, tag team, midcard, and women's divisions. That's total brand dominance that would be unprecedented in modern WWE. So here's what I absolutely need from you right now because this is the wrestling conversation of the year. Is the Bloodline too powerful now with Zilla and Jacob added? Did WWE rob fans of seeing these two develop independently? What faction could possibly be assembled to stop this version of the Bloodline? Drop your most passionate takes in the comments because this is going to define WWE's direction for the next year minimum. Smash that like button if you're hyped about Zilla and Jacob in WWE even if you have concerns about the booking. Subscribe to WrestlingNewsCC and turn on all notifications because we're covering every development in this Bloodline expansion and the chaos it's going to create across WWE. Zilla Fatu and Jacob Fatu are here. The Bloodline just became unstoppable. Roman Reigns' empire is at its peak power. And WWE's entire roster is now living in fear of what the most dominant faction in wrestling history can do to them. This isn't the beginning of the end for the Bloodline, this is the beginning of their most devastating phase yet. 3 wrestlers got stretchered out at Survivor Series. That's just the start of the destruction coming. The Samoan Dynasty isn't ending, it's evolving into something even more dangerous than before. And every single person in WWE is about to learn what happens when you don't acknowledge the tribal chief and his family.